Welcome back to the stay-at-home edition of Inside the Game with CNHI Sports. Like much of the country, we're under a lot of snow here in Indiana, so we're here in our dining room instead of in the office. But we're going to bring you the same great conversations. Let's start in Big Ten country with Elton Hayes of CNHI Sports Pennsylvania and Kevin Brockway of CNHI Sports Indiana. Now time for our weekly Big Ten spot with Elton Hayes of CNHI Sports Pennsylvania, Kevin Brockway of CNHI Sports Indiana. Elton, let's start with you. The Michigan Wolverines, a long layoff. They come back this weekend, fall behind. It takes a little bit of time to get it going, but they make a big rally, beat Wisconsin in impressive fashion. Was that enough to say Michigan survived this, or do you need to see more?
I've seen what I needed to see that second half. Obviously they came out a little slow. Juwan Howard talked about that in his post-game interview. They put it together in dominant fashion that last half. I believe they held Wisconsin without a point for something like 8 minutes, and just the offense, as it did before, just went into overdrive. And they're the team to beat in the conference right now. I understand Ohio State. They've got a great showdown with Ohio State this weekend, which will be for, I guess, conference supremacy. But I think Michigan surviving that 2-week layoff, coming out, shaking off the rust in the first half, and putting away a talented, NCAA tournament bound Wisconsin team like it was nothing, showed me all I needed to see from that program and its trajectory.
That was a very impressive showing by the Wolverines. Kevin, IU's had the slow start down, not necessarily the comeback, though, all the time. That part hasn't been consistent. They're on the NCAA bubble. Seems like everybody in the conference is on the bubble right now. How do you feel about this week and how important it is to the Hoosiers' chances of staying alive and playing in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, I wrote about this week. This is really a huge week. You got 2 games at home, and we know Indiana hasn't played great at home, but they are coming off that win over Iowa in that last game at Simon Scott Assembly Hall. So maybe some confidence there. But you've got, Minnesota on Wednesday night, and you've got a Minnesota team that's 0-7 on the road, does not play as well on the road as they do at home. And then you have Michigan State, a team that's reeling, a team that lost to Purdue. Again, last night is 4-9 in the conference. I think this is the week where you really got to take advantage at home, take those 2 games at home and finish above 500, because I think 10 wins in the conference will get Indiana in. It's just a matter of how do you get there? Right now they're at 6, but if they can pick up 2 this week, I think that would be really huge for their chances.
Elton, Penn State's been one of the scrappy, feel-good stories of the season. The interim coach staying in every game. They took a big loss to Nebraska, though. I think a 25-26 game Big Ten losing streak snapped for the Cornhuskers. Is there life left for the Nittany Lions as they have that long shot hope of making the NCAA tournament?
We'll find out tomorrow or Thursday night when Ohio State comes to the Bryce Jordan Arena. 4th-ranked Ohio State. If you're Jim Ferry, you're looking for any type of motivational tool to use right now. Maryland came in last year as the 4th-ranked team in the nation. In last December, Penn State was able to earn a win. However, this Penn State team doesn't have Lamar Stevens or Mike Watkins, but their players are talented in their own right. But after watching Penn State just kind of fizzle out against Nebraska, I'm wondering if there's any hope for them to make the tournament. They go to Iowa later this week on Sunday. Do they turn around and have a rescheduled game next Tuesday at Nebraska? If you're going to make a push for the postseason to at least get your name back in the bubble conversation, it starts tomorrow. And Penn State lost the close one to Ohio State earlier this season. We'll see if they can recreate any of that magic and try to keep their bubble chances alive.
No doubt. It's going to be a busy last couple of weeks here of the basketball season for the conference. But at the same time, spring football getting underway. Kevin, the Hoosiers, kind of the story of the Big Ten last season during the regular season. How are they shaping up as another unique spring football campaign gets ready to start?
Yeah, it's interesting when you look around the country. Now, Indiana has not set a date yet, but Purdue starts this week. And I know down in the SEC, Florida is starting this week as well. So some teams are choosing to start earlier than later. And Florida's not doing the spring game. So, I think that's going to be a question around the country. Are people going to do spring games or not? or some kind of abbreviated spring game. But certainly for Indiana, it's going to be a spring of great expectation. You've got 2 years in a row of sustained success, 2 straight years that have finished with bowl games. I still haven't got that elusive bowl win. I guess that's next on the agenda. And really, trying to contend for a Big Ten title. And you would think that that would be something that you wouldn't hear about in certainly the lifetime of an average Hoosier fan. But this is what Tom Allen has built. He's got this program to a point where they can contend for a Big Ten East title, and a very competitive Big Ten East, though. And it'll be interesting to see. I'll be curious to see how much some of the established programs in the Big Ten East, like Michigan, that's coming in with a good recruiting class, like Penn State, bounce back off the COVID year.
Elton, how about that with Penn State? They were one of the disappointments. Obviously, the football season didn't go at all the way they wanted to the first 5 weeks or so. They finished strong. What's the feeling about the Nittany Lions heading into 2021?
People are excited, to see them close out the year on the win streak they did. One of the concerns, however, is just the new coaching changes. Penn State last month brought in a new offensive coordinator, and Mike Yursich came up from Texas, replaced Kirk Shiraka, who had been in the position for 1 year. He didn't have a spring to work with the offense. I think what we saw is when he finally was able to, get some time in practice and games with the offense, it started to click a little bit, as evidenced by that 4-win losing streak and that uptick in offense. But, you're bringing in a new coordinator in Mike Yursich, co-defensive coordinator and safeties coach Tim Banks, who had been on the staff for 4 seasons, was named Tennessee's defensive coordinator this past week. So another position coach you have to replace. Tyler Bowen, who had done really, really well in recruiting and with Penn State's tight ends, is headed to the NFL as the new Jacksonville Jaguars tight ends coach. So the question is, this could work if you get a full spring uninterrupted with these new coaches, letting them have time to implement their offense, their systems, the players get acclimated to it. However, if something happens COVID-wise and they're forced to kind of, scrap everything and work remotely again, you go into that question of kicking the can further down the road. So I think people are excited about what Penn State returns and with talent. But we just want to see how it all can work with getting all these coaches and the players in the same room on the same page for an extended spring. So that's the that's the scouting report from here in Happy Valley.
Yeah, and wrap it up sort of for this show at least, and kind of building off of what Elton was just talking about. It's going to be maybe a different spring for each of the 14 schools. I mean, depending on what your situation is in your state and how your team is doing, how important – I know Tom Allen has talked a lot about this, and it's how he built this program in Bloomington. How important is it to kind of be on top of those details in your culture? How important is that going to be for teams across the conference, across the country, really, this spring?
Yeah, you got to really – I think with COVID-19, you still got to take it with a level of caution. The numbers are improving throughout the country. We can establish that. So, but we are still seeing instances of pauses and outbreaks in basketball, and that could certainly carry over into the football realm for sure. During the spring, if you're not careful and if you don't follow the precautions. So, Tom Allen has been trying to be really on top of it. Certainly, I think it affected though every program in the Big Ten last year. If you look back at it. I think there were very few programs that got through the full 8-9 games, right? Penn State being one of them, Rutgers being one of them, but very few did. Even Indiana at the end of the year, had a COVID break in early December. And I really think that COVID break impacted the bowl game as well in terms of their preparation and just their overall energy in that game was kind of lacking. You didn't see that same fire and the rust of, not practicing. So important to get all those reps in for sure. And I know Tom Allen also even talked about Aaron Wellman and the strength and conditioning, aspect of it, and the fact that he'll finally have this full off season to get guys in the weight room and implement, the strength and conditioning program to get these guys bigger, stronger, faster. I know Tom is very excited about that.
No doubt about it. Lots of news coming around. Pretty soon we're going to be talking about March Madness, which after losing it a year ago, just even be able to say that really sounds like a lot of fun. Thanks a lot, guys, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Sounds good.
You all stay safe and take care.
Thanks as always to Elton and Kevin for their time. You can follow Elton and the Penn State Nittany Lions at EHBC12. You can follow Kevin in the Indiana Hoosiers at Kevin Brockway G1. Now let's get a national perspective. Check in with Clay Horning of CNHI Sports Oklahoma. All right, now time for our weekly spot with Clay Horning out in Oklahoma. And Clay, big weekend for NASCAR, kicking off the season with their Super Bowl, the Daytona 500. A lot of excitement this year, a lot of changes in that organization. One of the biggest, Michael Jordan, coming on as a team owner. He's got Bubba Wallace as his driver. Bubba becomes the first black driver ever to lead a lap in Daytona. I think that's going to be a season-long storyline. What'd you make of the race and in a wider scope of what looks to be a pretty big season for NASCAR overall?
I even considered making it the subject of my national column in the aftermath of it. I think Jenna Fryer, who covers motorsports for the Associated Press, wrote a story in advance of the 500 just about how people had said, that if it went progressive, if it took a left turn, that it would lose its fans. They've now banned the Confederate flag. They did give Kyle Larson his job back awfully quickly, but after he spouted the N-word in a remote virtual race during the opening months of the pandemic, I'm for second chances. That one came awfully fast, but anyway. Yes, Michael Jordan, team owner. Bubba Wallace is his driver. NASCAR as a whole is trying. I wouldn't say reinvent itself. Well, you know what? I would say it is reinventing itself because it's got a lot of new races on the schedule. It's trying to revamp progressivism aside, it's trying to revamp itself. And it's trying to be a good corporate citizen in the United States. And so, I think all of that is terrific. It's, I don't know what it is that the membership of Augusta National needs to do. I don't believe giving a membership to Condoleezza Rice necessarily does it for me. It's like I have these mixed feelings that continue about the Masters. But what I'm trying to say is that where NASCAR is concerned, I give it up to their efforts to be inclusive, to be diverse, all those things. And so because they had such awful weather, and because we also had such awful weather in Oklahoma City, you had wall-to-wall weather coverage on the networks. I could not have even watched it if it had not been pushed, into the evening time. And so I did watch it, and now I do understand stage racing as well. I sort of get that. I like in essence, you have forced yellows, allowing them to schedule together. Not all of them, but some of their pits. Anyway, I was into it, and I've got to tell you that like the best booth in sports might be Ernie and Shaq and Kenny and Charles, NBA on TNT, but the second best might be, and I can't even tell you who the play-by-play guy is, but Clint Boyer and Jeff Gordon with him in that booth. They're hilarious. They're fun. You can tell they're into it. It was terrific. I've always been an open wheel guy when it comes to auto racing. And I don't know how IndyCar reinvents itself at this point. It should have never split with CART 100 years ago. But anyway, NASCAR was exciting to me, and I'm looking forward to the road race at Daytona coming up. I never thought I would say that, but now I know there is one because I was taken by the 500 broadcast. So just kudos. They're on the right track, honey. So.
That's one of those changes on the schedule too. They're supposed to be in California this week, and the coronavirus situation out there won't allow that. So they're going to race on the road course at Daytona, which should be a lot of fun. I think just the second time that's happened in a points race in NASCAR. So it's going to be a real interesting season for them. Also, nationally, been a lot of focus on college basketball, college football, what they're going through. College wrestling is a big deal out in Big 12 country. It's a big deal here in Big 10 country. they're going through a lot of the same things, but they don't get the spotlight maybe that the football and basketball teams do as well. It's supposed to be a big weekend for college wrestling here in Big Ten territory. We'll see if that happens. There's a lot of elements here with the virus and the weather, but what's your take on the state?
Okay, here's the deal.
Right
college wrestling is not – people will tell you it's a dying sport. It's not a dying sport. There are very nearly 80 Division I programs. That's I for a moment, I thought that might have been as many as there are Division I football. That's not the case, but there are more college wrestling programs than there are in, say, the Power 5 conference schools. And so it's not a dying sport by any means, but it can be so much better. And I've felt this for so long, and it's fueled by what I really love about the sport is that if you get two guys in a tight match and they're reversing each other in the third period, nothing is more exciting than a reversal in the third period of a tie. It's like a 3-2 pitch with the bases loaded in the ninth. It's just insane. From being down to being the one on top. It's, who needs to escape when you can just reverse instead. So anyway, I love the excitement the sport can offer. However, forever, and I don't know how much time stop me but forever, wrestling makes no sense at all because the lifeblood of the sport are its duels. And you can be the best dual team in the country, and it means absolutely nothing in the pursuit of a national championship. And I mean nothing. And so whenever I would, in my life as a sports writer, cover a duel or whatever, I'm watching it and I'm like, I don't even know why we're here, because what's happening here doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It is an exhibition. And in the column I wrote, it's like deciding the College World Series with a home run derby. You spend all season playing games, then say, here's what we're going to do to claim we're not going to play a game. We're going to do this. And that's what wrestling literally does every single season. So here's what you need to do. First of all, nobody wrestles on campus more than 7 times in a season. That's it. Lots of programs, it's 5 or 6. That's crazy. The best thing about wrestling is wrestling, and never do they, or hardly ever do they, put themselves in front of their own fans. So you've got to make it look more like the basketball season. You got to wrestle more duels. You've got to quit traveling to this tournament, that tournament, and just wrestle more duels. And the reason why you're going to do that, and you'll want to do that, is we're now going to use duels to crown a national champion. So we need more duels. We need more wrestling. We need more wrestling on campus, more reason for the fans to come. Yeah, and in pandemic, maybe a different deal. But right now, yeah, in the Big Ten, there's like 5 duels or 4 duels scheduled for Friday with top 25 versus top 25 program. There's another one on Sunday. Here, scheduled at least, don't know if they'll get it off, is the Bedlam match, OU, Oklahoma State, and Stillwater. And you would be watching these to say, oh, I wonder what kind of seed this team is going to get in the tournament. But, but that's not the way they do it. But they can do it that way. So we need more duels. Then, and I think you should make your conference tournament a dual tournament. And here's the deal. If you wrestle from Thursday to Saturday, you can probably have a dual champion in your conference and wrestle individual brackets for individual titles. Certainly from Thursday to Sunday, you can do it. So we're not giving away the old individual brackets to create individual champions. We're not doing away with that. In fact, what the NCAA does with tennis is that it runs a dual tournament and it comes back a few days later and it runs an individual tournament. I don't know why they don't do it for wrestling. But anyway, okay, you get past the conference tournaments. You give me 4 8-team regionals on campuses and schedule them like it's a 2-day event. You can go from 8 to 1 in 2 days, but schedule them from over a Thursday through Sunday around the country the same way they do with super regional baseball and super regional softball. And now you've got wall-to-wall wrestling happening on television for 4 consecutive days. And it's not like here we are on mat number 1 and here we are on mat number 4. No, there's one mat. And anyway, and over the course of 2 days at any number of sites, spread over 4 days, because sites are wrestling different 2 days, whatever. You come up with, oh my God, a Final Four. You now have a Final Four, and then wherever you want to have your Final Four site, then you wrestle just as it is in college basketball. On a Friday, you'd have your 2 semifinal duels, and on a Monday, you'd have your final duel, and then you can come back on Thursday through Saturday in the same arena and wrestle for individual championships and All-American status. And now you're selling out Madison Square Garden, the Kiel Center, whatever it is in Omaha, or whatever. You're for 5 days rather than 3. You're also creating a made-for-TV sport in this way. You're making your regular season not fraudulent as it is right now, and it makes so much more sense. And here's the punchline: every time I take this to, like, former All-American wrestler, his name is Bo Manus. He is at OU, and he is the athletic coordinator, the guy who's above everything at Norman High School. We got 2 Class 6A high schools in Norman. And I've said to him, I've said to other people in wrestling, you need a national dual champion. You need your national champion to be decided by duels. And they will say, we already have a national dual championship. And I say, no, you don't. You have the Cliff Key National Duels in mid-season. It's an invitational tournament. You don't even have to earn your way there. So it's just, the people that stand in the way of this are the people who have been running wrestling forever, which is why it probably will not happen. But God, give me a 32-team national tournament with 4 8-team regionals on campus now, and whether ESPN takes hold of it or what, Fox would love it. They would bring Michael Buffer in. NBC has gone all in with sort of some off sports with the horse racing and hockey. I think NBC would love this. It's dying to happen. And if you believe in the sport, the thing that will make it succeed is that the actual product is already great. It just doesn't make any practical sense the way they compete for championships in it, and hasn't forever. Oh, one more point, make this in the column, that if you have a wrestling team with 5 wrestlers on it, there are 10 weights at the collegiate level. 5 wrestlers, the best you could do is tie every single duel. You win 5 by pinfall, you forfeit the other 5, it's 30-30. But if those 5 wrestlers are the best wrestlers in the country at their weight, you can go win a national championship, and you will not won a single duel the whole season. And that is insanity. It's just, I am a true believer in this one, and I've written something close to this about 6 years ago, not for a wider CNHI audience. And when I do it, I'm like, this makes so much sense. Somebody's going to take me up on it, but it hasn't happened. But anyway, I believe in it.
You have a lot of Indiana high school coaches on board. That was a system here for years. Separate team and individual tournaments. They switched it a few years ago. No one's very happy about it in Indiana. I'm sure that there's a lot of those coaches will be listening to this and saying amen as this goes on. Well, Clay, thanks a lot for your time, and we'll check in with you again next week.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks again to Clay for his time. You can follow our national sports columnist at Clay Horning. Now let's check in on the NFL offseason and check in with Bill Burt of CNHI Sports Boston. Ready. Now it's time for our weekly spot with Bill Burt of CNHI Sports Boston. And Bill, both Colts and the Patriots looking for new quarterbacks this year. I don't think there's any secret about that in either city right now. Lots of options out there on the market. It's going to be an interesting quarterback offseason by all reports. Who's at the top of your list? If you're the general manager for New England right now, who's the number one target for you?
Well, so that's a two-pronged question, because the Colts and the Patriots are in a different position. See, I believe the Colts look at themselves, hey, we're sort of like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers from last year. Not exactly, but, somewhat, where a quarterback takes us deep into the playoffs. The Patriots have they need a quarterback. They also need a middle linebacker. They need a cornerback. They need a right guard, a left guard. They need 2 wide receivers, and they need a tight end. So it's a different animal, the quarterback the Patriots are going to come in. who they're going to bring in, and I'm getting scared in New England because I'm it's been real quiet, which it always is, but I'm getting the feeling that we could get the return of Cam Newton, and that will be a dud here with the fans. I know they're not looking forward to that happening. I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen, but I got a feeling it could happen. If you ask me, I think what's going to happen, what I would do, and Bill Belichick has never, and I mean this, has never listened to me. I would say that they bring in a veteran for a year, which he might consider to be Cam Newton, and then draft someone with the 15th pick. Maybe it's going to be Mac Jones. I'm not sure. Maybe they move up a little bit. Maybe they see someone else. But Mac Jones seems like the right guy. Is Mac Jones ready to run an NFL franchise? No. 1 year, basically, he played. Had a great year, but it was 1 year. He hasn't seen anything yet. I mean, he hasn't seen enough snaps. It's all been as a backup. So I would see him potentially being so the Patriots then go after someone for 1 year. And I brought this up, I think, a couple weeks ago. Ryan Fitzpatrick fits. He's played for every team in the AFC East. Why not the Patriots to finish it off? And he'd be a guy who could, because I honestly believe Belichick does not want to go 5-11. He wants to make the playoffs. And last year they were 7-9. Surprised some people. Some people thought initially it was going to be a 5-11 team. Then it looked like it could be a 10-6 team. They ended up going 7-9. But they won their last 2 games, and I think he's seeing that. I think that's the progression he wants to make. He's looking to get a little better and then hand the job to the next Tom Brady in 2022. Now, obviously, I'm semi-joking there, but that's what I see in New England.
What's interesting to me is you've got so many teams out there. I mean, we cover 2 of them, but you're looking at maybe 10 to 12 teams this year that legitimately would like to upgrade. Are there 10 to 12 quarterbacks answers for those teams?
Well, Matt Ryan, former MVP, has been to a Super Bowl, and I think Atlanta's ready to move on. There's a contract issue there because he does have some long-term money, but I think it can be worked out. Ryan Tannehill, everyone's saying, let's find the next Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill is what he is. I think what Tennessee does, they hand the ball off a lot. They're driven by their offensive line. He's a solid, above-average quarterback, but in my opinion, he's not the kind of guy that's going to lead you to a Super Bowl. He's not, as we've seen. He's been solid. But in big games, he's struggled. And the Patriots, they're not that close. And I think they got to take a flyer on a $5 or $7 or $8 million guy, give him the job for a year. The interesting one with the Patriots is Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco, because there's word that he could be released, especially, or could be traded as part of the deal for, because I know his name comes up a lot and that team comes up a lot with the Houston Texans and the big quarterback Deshaun Watson. So it's, again, this is crazy. It's crazy the way we're talking. It literally is musical chairs. And I'm looking forward to it. But I honestly don't believe the Patriots are going to be in it right now. I just don't think I think they're too far away. They have too many holes. I do think Belichick's going to have a decent year, but I think the Patriots are looking more ahead for 2 years.
One thing that I heard recently, I want to kind of get your take on it because you're closer to the situation. Somebody mentioned they thought Brady playing as well as he did the last couple of years there in New England set back the rebuild. That at some point in Belichick's mind, he was ready to move on to Garoppolo, and then Brady just kept playing at such a high level that it didn't make sense to make that move. Garoppolo gets traded, and now the rebuild starts. Maybe the Patriots, they got another Super Bowl out of it, another Super Bowl title out of it. So I'm sure they're not at all upset it played out this way. But do you feel like that's what happened? There's a
they did go to 2
delay,
Super Bowls.
and now
they lost the one
begins?
to Philadelphia, and Brady was fantastic in that Super Bowl. So it's look, Jimmy. Here's what Jimmy G did. Brady realized, they're serious about replacing me. So guess what Brady does in 2014? He has really the best offseason of his career working-wise. His footwork, which was going south, all of a sudden he's creating more space than he'd ever done since 2007, his best year. So he definitely reacted to the drafting of Jimmy Garoppolo. And Belichick said nice things about a rookie quarterback, which he's never done. So Brady's all of a sudden, he's back to Michigan. You know what? I'm not going to deal with this anymore. I'm going to work my butt off. And I think Brady I don't want to say mailed it in because he's never mailed it in, but he really went after it and took up his game to the next level. And then his body started taking care of his body to the nth degree. So look, Jimmy G, they did the right thing. I would have kept Brady in New England. He would have played for me this year. But again, Belichick does things, runs it like a military operation, and Brady had enough. He had enough being a lieutenant. I think he wanted to be a general somewhere else.
Yeah, well, it worked out for him, and we'll see how things go for New England. It worked out for them keeping him around for the last 3 years. No doubt about that. Bill, thanks a lot for your time. I know it's going to be a little bit different here in the offseason, but there is no offseason.
It never anymore. It's the old baseball.
I'm sure we'll have some more to talk about.
I will say this.
Thanks a lot for your time, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Best to the family. Take care.
Thanks as always to Bill. You can follow his coverage of the New England Patriots at Burt Talk Sports. You can follow me in the Indianapolis Colts at GM Bremer. And thanks again to you. We'll be with you again next week to bring you Inside the Game.